Hi everyone, Reverend Dr. Katie here, and I am bringing you this Facebook Live today to talk about a very specific topic. And that topic is scripture and how it relates to human sexuality, to sexual orientation, to gender identity. This was a question that came up earlier in the week, and I promised I would address it, and here I am. I just wanted to be able to do that in a day when I knew I could be really responsive and pay attention to questions that people are asking. When I asked you earlier in the week what questions you had about this topic, lots of great ones were rolling in, and I really appreciated that. And then all these other questions started rolling in too about just scripture in general, how we interpret scripture, how that informs our lives. I really heard the deep conflicts that many of you have about scripture, and I jotted some of those down here. I'm going to make sure I keep them right at hand. And I totally understand that because I've been there, and I think my own inner questions about scripture is what led me to pursue getting this really big degree in scripture. I got a PhD in the New Testament where I learned ancient languages. I learned how to interpret scripture in its ancient context, and that's a journey that I have loved doing, and I want to share the very best of what there is to offer with all of you. And part of the problem here is that many of you have experienced scripture being used as a weapon. You've experienced it being used to tell you what to do rather than teach you how to live. You've experienced it being used to correct behavior, correct actions, correct thoughts that you're having, rather than to guide you towards the greatest expansiveness that you can be in with your Creator. And I believe that Jesus came to show us ways to live, to teach us ways to live, but also to grant us ultimate freedom. And the Jesus that I know and the Jesus who is reflected in Scripture teaches us how to do that in my experience. And I want that to be your experience as well. So let me give you just a few examples of the things that we might be doing. I am scheduling a Bible study for those of you who want to engage in that. And I haven't set the dates yet, but that will be done soon. I will let you know as soon as it is. I'm trying to work on that this afternoon, maybe tomorrow morning, before I can finalize everything, working around my travel schedule and a lot of other schedules as well. And we want to address all of this, all of these feelings that you have so that you can come to ultimate freedom, so that you can come to ultimate resolution about your journey and your journey with Scripture. And until you have freedom with Scripture, until you don't feel that hollow feeling, the anger, the lack of reconciliation deep inside your soul, you won't have the ultimate freedom in your spiritual life that you desire. You don't have to reconcile it for anyone else, only for yourself. And that's one of the things I love helping people do. I've been doing that in and out in classrooms with adults, with all of you, with a ton of different people, ton of different varieties for many years. And one of the biggest compliments I think anyone ever paid to me was, "Oh my gosh, you make it interesting." Oh my gosh, you take things that we traditionally have assumed are boring, and then you've actually made it interesting. So actually, I really love to help people do that. I'm going to give you a live example in just a moment. If you have questions as I'm doing this live, please just type them in, and we'll try to answer as many as we can within a reasonable amount of time. I'm a big believer that I could give you pat answers and formulas, but that's not nearly as good as actually teaching you the method on how to go about finding the answers for yourself in a really solid and sustained way. That's what I want to do in the Bible study. And that's what we will do in the Bible study. And I love giving people all the tools that are available so that they can come to deep reconciliation within their own souls. And they can tell me if this resonates with you. You can match the person of who you know Jesus to be in your own relationship, in your own heart, with Scripture and the presentation of God, of the divine, of Jesus in Scripture. And we want to really bring those two together in sustainable ways. And so there's a couple of ways that I suggest to do this. I'm going to give you a little preview now. One is that we bring a heart and a spirit of curiosity to Scripture. And as much as we can, we kind of leave our doctrine and dogma behind, because those come a lot later than Scripture. And when we can bring a spirit of curiosity and we can simply ask questions like, I wonder why it says that. I wonder what that means. Why is that word in there? And even this kind of curiosity, I feel like this when I read this Scripture. Why is that? And that's the spirit of curiosity that we want to bring. The second thing that we want to do is to bring a spirit of healthy suspicion. I'm going to say that again. It's a spirit of healthy suspicion. And why do we do this? What we want to do is to really ask ourselves, why was someone writing that the way that they're writing it? Why is this written down the way that it's written down? Why is this recorded the way it's recorded? What does that say about the ancient people who were thinking this way? What does it say about how they perceive God? And what does it say about the way we interact with the scripture? Notice that I didn't say, what does this say about God? That is a separate question. Instead, we're going to bring it down a level and say, what does this scripture say about the people who wrote it down? We'll also be able to sort of bring that same spirit of healthy and really fun suspicion to a question I see a lot of you have asked over the months and years that we've been doing this together, which is I see a lot of questions about Constantine, and I see a lot of questions about how did the Bible come to be? And a lot of you are very naturally suspicious that things have been taken out. We can address all of that. I can teach you all that. It's about a 30-minute lesson one day, and then you'll have time to explore that on your own. And it's much more simple and much more complicated than most people give it credit for all at the same time. And it's actually fairly fascinating. And so I can give you a little bit of insight into that. Then the third thing that we want to do is to read with a spirit of liberation and of freedom. So we're going to use our curiosity, our healthy suspicion, and then come to some conclusions about what does that mean for your own liberation, for your own freedom. Let's practice this. I'm going to turn to Genesis 1, and this is a scripture that came up as in your discussion, some of the questions that you had. And so this is, excuse me, this is the first day of creation in Genesis 1, so we have the traditional 7 days. And on the sixth day, this is what Genesis says. And I am reading from the New Revised Standard Version today in English. God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over the cattle and all the wild animals of the earth, over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created humankind in his image, and in the image of God he created them. Male and female, he created them. So I want you we're going to read first with the spirit of curiosity. And the first curiosity I invite you to notice is the curiosity that you have about how you feel right now. Do you feel a little maybe wildly anxious because maybe this has been used to try to conform you into some expectation of society? Does it make you feel free? Does it make you feel neutral, like you don't have a particular association with this text? Whatever it is, just notice that, and then we're going to set it to the side for a moment. It's important. It's very important. We're going to set it to the side as just one thing among many that we're noticing. The other thing that I really notice with this scripture is the plural. God says, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness." That's very curious to me. That's a little bit bizarre. That's not how we usually expect God to speak in scripture, using the plural. We kind of see this in like Renaissance Europe or something where the royal person always refers to themselves in the plural, or other people do too. That's not that common in scripture, actually. Now, many of you might be jumping immediately to your explanation about this. I'm going to ask you to resist that because that interferes with your curiosity. Let's just stay curious about that for a moment. I'm also curious about what it means to be created in his image. God created humankind in his image. My curious self is going to ask the kind of questions of what is God's image? Is that a physical image? Is that a mental image? Is that a spiritual image? Like, what does that actually mean? And why did we go from our to his? What's up with that? What's up with that? So that's part of the curiosity that we're going to bring to the text. And then the final thing, there's a lot of other things I have curiosity about, but the one thing I'll highlight here is what does this mean that male and female, he created them? Does that mean they're created at the same time? Is that one person? Is that two people? Is that multiple people? What is that? And even just asking that question, is that one person or more than one person, might open up some doors for us to explore this particular scripture. And why am I bringing up this scripture? I'm bringing up this scripture because this is one of those ones that's used about human sexuality to try to make people be molded into a particular setup, into a particular traditional marriage setup. Nothing wrong with that, but if that doesn't fit your personality, then that's not going to resonate with you. It's not going to give you freedom. It's also made It's also used to mold people into particular gendered expectations. Because you're female, you must do this. Because you're male, you must do this. And those are pretty arbitrary. So I don't actually see that in the text when I read with my spirit of curiosity. So maybe we can lift this text up from its expectations and see what else is there. Then the next thing we're going to do is read with a spirit of healthy suspicion. So when I and should be pretty fun, actually, should be fairly liberating to do this. So when I ask with kind of healthy suspicion, then I'll say, well, whose advantage is this text? If this text is read to try to get women to do certain things and try to get men to do certain things, who does that benefit? Who's interpreting that? So that's a healthy suspicion kind of question. And does it actually say that? Or is that something that we put, a layer that we put over the text? And can we read it in a different way? We're not even going to try to read it in a different way when we read with healthy suspicion. We're just going to ask the questions at this moment in time. Well, who says that? Then when I read with healthy suspicion, maybe one of the explanations of let us make humankind in our image, one of the common explanations I hear for that is, oh, well, God is talking to Jesus. But when I ask with healthy suspicion, I think Jesus wasn't actually around yet for anyone that wrote down this text. What is another possibility? That doesn't preclude that possibility, but it opens up the door to other ways of understanding this text. Who is the plural here? We can have some fun and some creativity with that. Then the last thing we're going to do is really read for liberation and freedom. What does the story say to me in my current context? Am I freed from old ways of reading this that don't serve me? Or do some traditional ways of reading this text, maybe they do serve me and I want to add on this other layer. And once we do all of this work, we'll be able to have some of that freedom. You'll be able to read in the end with your own liberation and your own freedom, and also have the tools to explain it to other people. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I've given you kind of a mini model. Of course, when we do the study together, it will be over a much longer period of time, and I'll be able to guide you through step by step, verse by verse, give you tons of sweet information from all my background about this as well. So that's what we'll be doing. I will have links for you later today. I look forward to hearing from all of you. If you have any more questions, curiosities, healthy suspicions, just post them below and I will get to them as soon as I can. And have a wonderful day, everyone.